What's up, everybody? Welcome to We Have Cool Friends, the cool show where we talk to our cool friends. I'm one of your cool friends, Greg Miller, alongside my cool friend, Anthony Rapp.
What's up, universe of people watching the show?
All right. It's better than Games Daily. You weren't ready for the energy. I like it. You got a what's up now. You're working on a catchphrase. What's up? There it is.
Yeah, that's a callback. That's a callback to an old commercial. Remember that?
Well, what's up? Yeah. Remember that Budweiser?
Yeah.
Then they had the frogs.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. When are you going to do a Budweiser commercial?
No.
What? Come on, King of Beers now.
Yeah,
Beechwood Age.
Okay, call me, obnoxious, but I only want to do things for products that I don't drink beer. I don't have anything against beer. I've tried it many times.
It's just not for you.
And I just have never really liked it.
What's your drink of choice?
I like wine, whiskey, tequila. Oh. Every once in a while, a little rum.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the darker liquors. Well,
Sure.
Tequila's clear, but it could be a little amber.
Sure.
If you get a, good reposado.
Right.
or an añejo.
Are you out there? Are you doing cocktails? Or are you just taking this on the rocks?
A little bit cocktails sometimes, but I just don't like sweet. I like spicy.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got like a jalapeno.
I like a little jalapeno.
Yeah. All right.
Jalapeno.
Jalapeno. What? How do you say it right?
Jalapeno.
You've listened to these shows. You know that I can't say anything.
Okay.
All right. I try my best out here.
I understand.
I struggle every day.
I'm trying to help you since you're my cool friend.
We are cool friends. Give me a pound there, buddy.
Pound it.
That's what I like to see. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, you're welcome. I have a friend he doesn't pound it with anyone else but me.
Interesting.
Including friends. Like, I've known him for a long time, but he's like, there's a good friend of his that he's like, come on, man, pound it. And he's like, no.
What's the story? Why does he only pound with you?
He thinks I don't know. He just likes to mess with his friend.
Oh, okay, good. That's part of friendship, right?
Yes.
There's a kind of funny rule that you can now take advantage of if you want, where we're allowed to talk shit about anybody in the office if they're not in the room.
Oh, good. Okay.
So that's the thing. Like right now, that means Tim's on the board, Joey's on the board, Cool Greg's on the board. I wouldn't suggest Cool Greg. That seems like he would take it hard. Cool Greg, a very young soul.
Cool Greg is different from this Greg.
Right.
Yeah. You're uncool Greg?
Yes.
Famous Greg.
Famous Greg.
So for the record, I was originally old Greg. Because what happened is we hired Cool Greg.
You are
And he
older.
was Greg.
Yeah.
And then everybody would say Greg, and then we'd both respond like, oh no, young Greg, old Greg.
Yes.
And then finally we were like, we're going to call Cool Greg, because he's cool. And then it was a conversation, what do we call Greg? Which I thought, of course, you just call me Greg. Yeah. But in turn, they were like, old Greg.
Old Greg.
And then Cool Greg's like, nah, that ain't cool. Let's call him Famous Greg.
Famous Greg.
And then Cool Greg started introducing me to people as Famous Greg. And when he'd bring him over, I'm like, well, we got to stop this because that's not a good look.
No,
that makes it sound like I told you who's your boss to call me Famous Greg. Anthony, speaking of famous people, you're famous.
I'm a little famous.
What's that like?
It's mostly nice. Yeah. I mean,
it's mostly okay.
Yeah. There's times when it gets a little awkward and weird, but people are generally pretty nice.
When do you think you turned the corner in your career where you were getting stopped? Like, do you remember the moment where it became like, oh, this is a regular thing?
When I was doing Rent first in New York.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because being in New York and being in a show at the same time, that's a big hit show. Being on the subway, walking down the street, but people were generally, like in New York, it's not a rule, but there's sort of this unspoken understanding that famous people live among you and walk in the streets. And so I think generally people aren't like hounding them and like chasing them. Yeah. But like they might be, say something politely small, sweet. And then that's always appreciated. Yeah. It's when you see when I see videos of like the Beatles in the old days or, even Justin Timberlake, like literally walking down the street and people chasing and like that would be hard. Gotcha. If I didn't feel like I could like live my life, more or less like be able to just hang out, then I would start to feel bad about it. So here's a dual part question jumping off of that. How do you define yourself? When somebody says, what do? You're just an actor? Yeah, I'm an actor, and I've done some writing. I wrote a book. What's the book called? It's called Without You. It's called Without You. Now. Yeah. There you go. It came out 13 years ago now. Oh, wow. Okay. Time for a sequel. Without You too. It was the hardest thing I ever did. It was really? It was a great thing. I'm really proud of it, but it was really hard. All right, well, tell me all about it now. Now we're stopping the rest of the questions, going right into this. It's pretty serious. Okay, cool. This is a serious show. Yeah, it's a memoir about when I was doing Rent. While I was doing the show, my mom was in the last year of her life in a battle with cancer. And Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, also died after the dress rehearsal. So it's about living with loss. So it's a memoir. Yeah, at the same time of this incredibly all these life-changing experiences that were full of joy and amazing opportunities, and also the most devastating sorrow. So it's a memoir about grief. So
was that part of the healing process that pushed you to actually want to put that down on paper and share that with everybody?
yeah, I had it. So there's I don't know if you've ever seen, there's this really cool coffee table book about Rent that is like incredible photographs of the rehearsal process and of the production and a sort of oral history of the show. And that publisher, while we were working on that book, asked me like if he thought I might have something to say or something to write about, and we were talking, and he had lost his father. And he was like, would you be interested in writing about that experience? And there's really not a lot of stuff that's about young people losing their parents. There's, any book that I knew of at the time that was about people losing people, they were much later in life.
Sure, yeah.
So, I was drawn to the idea that I could maybe contribute something to that conversation. And
how old were you when you lost your mother, and how old
I was
your
25,
mother? How old
and
was
she
your
was
mother?
55.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was really, it was really crazy. It was
Sure.
really hard, but it was also, life changing in many. I grew a lot too, so
Sure, you have to, right?
yeah. And in our culture, there's so little room to really talk about these kinds of heavy things. I think maybe more so now in the last few years when so much heaviness is getting more talked about
Sure.
in general. But especially grief, there's this notion like, oh, you got to get over it, or not. People don't say that, but there's this thinking kind of that.
Well, there's always that thing, right? Of like when someone's going through something, you have those degrees of separation of. All right, I'm going to give them their space. I'm not going to intrude on them.
Right.
But does that person want?
Yeah.
Lots of people just need somebody to pull the plug and ask questions, and then they let it all out. Right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of awkwardness on both sides, right?
Sure.
And so part of what I was hoping to do is like demystify some of it and be just open about the experience to help. And the response like far exceeded anything that I ever would have imagined. So
What was your biggest takeaway from it? You talk about like sharing it and getting that out there for people.
yeah, it was. People have shared with me many times over the years how much it helped them.
Yeah.
And that was the hope and the goal. And I was really grateful that was the case. I really thought like, okay, this is this thing I'm doing. Who knows what people are going to think?
Sure.
I'm putting this out there and it'll be what it'll be. And then the response, it was really warmly received. There were also some really good reviews. I fully expected I might have some like, fans of the show really like it, but I really thought that like critics were going to think, who's this guy?
Yeah.
And then it turned out that they said some really nice things. So
Adventures in Babysitting Kids, writing this thing. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously. Because, like there's a lot of times when actors write books and the literary world is like, poo.
Yeah, sure.
So I was grateful for that.
Were you close with your mom, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I was very close. And she was a single mother. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. And she was a nurse, and this was a time in the 70s and 80s when nurses were not paid well. So
Sure.
she was scraping.
Where were you raised?
Outside of Chicago in Joliet, Illinois.
Nice.
And so it was, she really struggled, but she never visited. She worked really hard not to visit the stresses onto us. She really did her best to take good care of us, and she did. And she I started acting when I was a little kid, and she was like, yes, anything, I'll help make that happen. She was the opposite of like a pushy stage mother.
Yeah.
People loved having her around when I was working because she was so not like typical. She was like really, quiet and nice and calm and, not like into the kind of glitz and glam of it all.
Yeah.
Is it a secret? Not a secret that we're in San Francisco, right?
Oh, God, no. People we're above a comic shop. People come by and take photos all the time.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So San Francisco was the last city that I toured with Yul Brynner in when I was 10. And that was an example. She went on the road with me for a year when I toured in The King and I with Yul Brynner. And that was the first time I ever was in San Francisco. But so she did anything in her power to make it possible for me to do this thing.
She travels for a year with you. I don't want to get your financials.
No,
are you making enough money at that point to support her and the family?
Yeah, to some degree. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't like a ton of money, but it was
I just meant like, she's with you for a year. She's not nursing. So how does that all work?
Yeah. And she also took a job with the production where she helped sell merchandise.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That somebody went to see that and then Anthony Rapp's mom was on a t-shirt or a button at the end of it. Yeah. That's really, really cool, man.
Yeah. So she was the biggest supporter of mine and she was able to see Rent. She was able to come to opening night, which was really meaningful.
Yeah.
She was well enough, but she was, not doing great, but she was well enough to make that trip.
Was that the last time she saw you perform?
Yeah. Which was like really hard, but it was also amazing because it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. So
sure. Is that how you define Rent, or that night that's the best thing that ever happened to you, or that production? The
production, the role, like everything about it was like it was the most incredible, artistic, and also the most successful thing that I'd ever done. And
I don't know, you're in Road Trip.
Well, yeah, but that was fun. But that was later. But yes,
I'm just saying, most successful thing you probably ever done.
It's not the most successful.
I'm just saying. Seemed like I bought the DVD. That was one of those DVDs everybody owns.
I understand.
All right, cool. Just putting it out there.
I understand.
Okay, just saying.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I understand. That's cool. Like for the cancer, did it come on suddenly? Did she know?
Yeah, 1992. She had it was this crazy event. She woke up in the middle of the night, like totally in agony, and managed to like crawl to the phone and call like 911. And when they took her to the emergency room, it was like there was a tumor that no one knew was there that had burst on her adrenal gland, which is really rare. And she almost died that night, but they saved her. And the surgeon said it was like a gunshot wound. It was like somebody had like shot a shotgun in her belly.
Wow.
So that was in 1992, and she died in 1997. So it was a while.
Oh wow. Okay.
She really fought. I mean, she really, you know. But it was such a weird, rare tumor. Like adrenal cancer is really rare. So they, you know, now if you have like a normal cancer, there's a lot that they can do. Like a friend's wife just went through colon cancer, and she's clear. Yeah. You know, and it was like pretty hardcore. It was like stage 3 or 4. Yeah. But like when it's that kind of thing, there's a lot of success.
I mean, that's the thing when people talk to me about their cancer stories, when they talk about the family members who are like, you know, I shared my cancer story so openly when I had it that I get so many people who reach out to me like, oh, my mom or my grandfather, they're going through it. And I'm like, well, it's going to be different every time. And I always feel like I had it so easy. You know what I mean? Right, cool. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma and I had it for, you know, I was in treatment and chemo for 6 months, 7 months. Like, you know what I mean? And then it was done and it was over. And I always talk about it now. It feels like a part of my life in a comic book that got retconned. Yeah. Where I forget about it until I see, like, I glance and I see the white spot or I see the bruise on my arm I still have. And it's like, oh, right, that is something that happened years ago, but I don't think about it anymore. Whereas it is, for so many people, changes everything. Yeah. And puts them into such a different position.
Yeah. So she, you know, she really fought and she really tried, you know, but then she, you know, she succumbed in the end. But she had incredible hospice care too, which is like, that's the other thing I wanted to try to, I also wanted in the book, I wanted to honor her journey through it and how much courage and dignity she had and how much she tried to take care of the people in her life before she was gone. Sure. You know, like some people when they go, they're like, I'm out. Yep. You know, but she really tried to leave things whole.
Right. And I feel like that, and that's awesome on her part, right? That was the thing for me with the naivete I had of going into it of, I thought it'd be no big deal. I thought I was going to do this. I was going to get to play Vita while I had chemo. It'll be blah, blah, blah. And so like not realizing I was going to become a very angry and different person while I did it and lash out at people for no reason and like have that. And it's like now whenever somebody hits me up and they're like, what can I do? I'm always like, you got to be a punching bag. You got to realize they're going to say horrible fucking things that they don't mean. They don't mean. And so like for your mom to have obviously been a nurse, probably seen all that, known that I need to leave good memories. I need to you know, caretake this a bit.
And there's also like it's the same kind of thing. There's such a stigma and such a weird, people feel so weird. Like, oh my God, you have cancer. How can I talk to him? Can I, you know, and there were probably people you wanted to just be able to talk about very frankly, right?
Sure.
But you know what I mean? I would imagine there's also times you probably didn't, but but like people were probably like all eggshelly around you and not knowing. And then but it's not your responsibility to make them feel better. You know, it's like a,
well, I'm doing I got my own baggage to do with right now.
Yeah.
So that speaks how awesome your mom is that she was thinking of all that.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, like if you're someone watching this and you're like, okay, I have a friend who's going through a really rough time, like they've just lost their parent. What do I do? The thing is you can like
buy my book.
Yeah, well, that, but no, please.
They know I'm joking.
But that like just I'm here. That's the main thing. Like I'm here.
100%.
You know, there's no other thing to say really.
I feel like that's the thing. You talk about losing a parent, or I think any kind of crazy life event. That's what I say to everybody now. Of like, listen, I know you got a million people you could probably talk to, but I'm here if you need me. Yeah. You can vent, you can yell, you can cry. I'm not going to be judgy about it.
Yeah, the room to be. Yeah.
So, hey, we got. My question would then be like, do you talk about how you wrote the book to honor her, what you can do for it. Do you think about that to this day? Like are you still making choices based on that? Because like, you know, people talk to me about like with cancer of like, oh man, and when it ended, you must have had a different outlook on life. And I'm like, no, but then I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I do. Where I try to focus on positive stuff and be a more positive person, and you know.
Sure. I mean, certainly, if there are people in my life who are going through that, I feel like I'm a resource for sure. And I, there was somebody that I knew that I was working with at the time he was in the company of Rent, who had lost his mom. So while she was still alive, but I was going through this moment.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm here if you need me. And I thought, oh, he's being nice and I appreciate that, but I don't want to burden him because it's going to be painful for him.
Sure.
And I've learned the total opposite is true. Having gone through it, yes, it can be a little painful, but it's like I want to be able to help somebody else who's gone. Like
Sure.
It's like there's this phrase that people say, like, you're a member of a club.
Yep.
And it's true.
Yep.
And it's a club that's like, I don't wish people to be in that club, but if you're in the club, we're members. We like, I know what it is.
100%.
So there's no like, don't worry about talking to me who's gone through it to make me feel sad about my loss. It's it's the opposite.
Yeah. 100. That they're entering into something that few people do and even fewer understand.
Yeah.
And so I 100%.
And people are really scared. It's understandably scary. It's like,
Sure.
oh my God, like how can I even imagine it? And,
Yeah.
and the phrase that I love so much that was said to me, that and it's like you could put it on a slogan, kind of thing. It's
A bumper sticker?
Yeah, the only way
Kevin,
out.
get a trademark ready.
The only way out is through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can try to avoid dealing with it, and you just never. It will always come around.
Yep.
So the only way to go to get to the other side of it is to go through it.
Yeah. I say a very similar thing. I say, if you're going through hell, keep on going.
Yeah.
Like, it's all you can do. You can't stop. Like, that was the thing of, like, I remember with mine where it was that, I announced it to I got diagnosed, announced it the next week, and then was in chemo the next week. And I remember somebody be like, oh man, you're right into it. I'm like, well, yeah, what do I get to gain by pushing it a month? Like, no, let's just get going. Like, I'm on the ride regardless. Put the bar down and let's go through it.
That's amazing.
So, on this theme here of your mom, of your life, you talk about being in Joliet, out there, suburbs,
it's
suburbs
suburban,
of Chicago, right?
Yeah.
You didn't go to Portillo's. We covered this on Games Daily. It's very upsetting to me still to this day. How do you go from being a normal kid out there playing and making mud pies? I'm just making up what kids do, to going and being like, how do you find acting?
I went to a summer camp that my mom was a nurse. Mm-hmm. In which my mom was a nurse, and when I was 6 and 7.
So she's like the camp nurse.
Yeah,
the kids
she's a camp nurse. So the three of us, my brother, sister, and I went along for the summer.
Yeah.
And I just auditioned for the show. I don't even remember why exactly.
Yeah.
I was 6. I do remember doing it.
Yeah.
It was I was the Cowardly Lion in the Wizard of Oz.
Very nice.
And I really loved it, and I felt like totally at home. And then we went back the next summer. I did 2 more shows, and then when we went back to Joliet after the second summer, the story my mom told, and I believe she didn't lie.
Lay it on.
I don't remember doing it, but I found an ad in the local paper, in the Joliet Herald News, for auditions for a musical version of A Christmas Carol, and I called and scheduled myself an audition.
Wow.
When I was like 8. And
you're like, Mom, we gotta go. Get in the car. Give me a juice box. We got an audition.
Yeah. And she was like totally into it.
Yeah.
And it's so when I think back to it, I've never been like a super. I'm pretty responsible, but I've never been like a driven career guy. Like I've just sort of like done what's there. But that, I just like, I knew I loved doing it. And so I like made it happen.
That's awesome.
I guess,
Yeah.
It's so funny. I was more like go get him as an 8-year-old than I am now in some ways. So.
Now you just wait for the script to show up. You're like, no, whatever, Star Trek. I guess I'll do this. I can find the time.
And then there was a really cool director that I worked with several times in a small theater outside Chicago in Lisle, Illinois, which is
I know Lisle.
And he recommended to my mom, he's like, why don't you take him to Chicago to like get agents? She's like, okay. Like it was all just very.
It's those small moves. People always think it's going to be this big break, this big step. You're an overnight success.
And this is also pre-internet, pre-reality TV.
Sure.
Any notion of like becoming a star, like, or how the paths people take to get successful.
Yeah.
It just was like, oh, you just go and do the thing. I mean, and we had no info. We were just like learning as we went. And there aren't that many kids who are really into it too. Like a lot of the kids who are doing this, or like a lot of this
hobbies.
Hobbies, but also their parents are really pushing them.
Yeah.
You see some really creepy things sometimes in the
audition
in like the waiting room where the parents are like drilling their kids and the kids, you could just feel like their kids are like shrinking and miserable.
Yeah.
And like that was never the way it was for me.
Gotcha.
So I think that some of that was probably picked up by the creative teams and stuff. They could see that I was
a healthy relationship, and
that I was like into it, you know. And so I got.
So you get a Chicago agent? Is that what
I
happened?
got Chicago agents, and then I got my first professional job when I was 9.
Okay.
Which was Evita. Do you know the show Evita? There was a movie with Madonna years ago.
Oh, okay, yes.
There were like 4
Don't
kids.
cry for
Yes, that
me.
one.
Yeah, I got it.
There were 4 kids in the original production, and I was one of those kids.
You
We had like
were
3
Madonna.
scenes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was Madonna. And then I did a Broadway musical after that when I was 10.
So did you know that, like, because it starts that you're doing plays, right, and Christmas Carol and stuff. Did you also know that you loved to sing and that you were talented in that regard?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that was the Wizard of Oz. When I was 6, I was singing.
Okay, but you're a
Yeah.
6-year-old kid.
Yeah,
You know, how
but
good
I mean,
are you there? You know what I mean?
But I could
You
carry
know?
tune and I could sing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was hand in hand for you that
Yeah,
time. Okay.
yeah.
Because that was like, you know, I enjoyed acting when I was growing up too, and I did like stuff here and there and like high school productions, but it was like everybody knew it was always the spring, or no, that's wrong. The fall play and then the spring musical.
Yes.
And I remember rolling into
That's
that.
exactly what it is.
Rolling into that spring musical every year
Yeah.
and being like, cool, heads up, I can't sing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
I totally get if I'm in the background. They always
Sure.
gave me something stupid
Sure.
to do.
And you do like the choreography.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah. No, but I could always carry tune and sing, and I loved it. And I did take some lessons. I mean, took like some half-assed tap lessons, and
Oh, wow, okay.
And I had a vocal coach that I worked with as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, learn technique stuff.
Sure.
And,
But Evita is what
Yeah.
really starts it?
well, that was my first. That's how I got my equity card, which is the Theatrical Actors Union.
Okay.
When I was 9, and then the Little Prince and the Aviator. You know the book, The Little Prince.
Yeah.
There was a musical version of it, and we previewed for 2 weeks and never opened. It was such a bad show that the theater kicked us out. They had another show that wanted to come in, and the theater owners were like, "This show sucks. Get out. Bring this other show in."
This is gonna actually draw money. We gotta get rid of you.
The producers actually sued successfully and got their money back.
Wow.
So it's like one of the only flops ever, if not the only flop ever, to make their money for the investors to.
And this is where the idea
recoup.
for the producers comes about.
Exactly. So that happened, and that was sort of like this crazy thing. And then I did The King and I when I was 10, and I did some other theater in the meantime. And then my first film was when I was 15, Adventures of Babysitting.
Right. And so what I find interesting about you, and this is where I literally was trying to go a long time ago, but we're having a great conversation. That wasn't a knock. I'm just letting you know is you live in New York.
Yes.
That seems weird to me. The industry's in LA, right? The industry's up in Canada. You're over there. What are you doing?
Well, New York is where theater is. That's
Yeah.
the center of theater.
And that's why I was going to ask you again. You when I asked you how do you define yourself as an
I see
actor
what
and
you're
stuff?
saying, yeah.
Like, do you think of yourself more as I'm a theater person, or is this me as an outsider? Just you don't think that way at all. You're an actor. You just do what you do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's capital A actor, but yeah, subset primarily
Bullet point A.
Yeah, like theater actor. But
Yeah.
I've really loved doing stuff on camera too, and I've had some really good experiences, and I'm
Sure.
very proud of being in film and television when it's good.
Yeah. When it's
seriously.
not good, you don't talk about it.
But yeah, like what's in my DNA, like at core, yeah, I'm a theater actor.
That's awesome.
If that makes sense, but
It totally does.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's different mentalities, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, from people I talk to, I feel like you get different vibes, not in a good way or bad way, but in terms of where they're going to be. And theater actor, right? Like, I feel like for me personally, and the stupid shit I do, right? Like the playing to the back of the house and the big gestures and stuff like that I learned way back in the day, that and professional wrestling have made me the performer I am. Of like how I carry myself and what I do, right? And I feel like you can get that vibe off of people.
yeah. But the interesting thing is that theater, like you can see some great performances on stage that are incredibly still and quiet and powerful, but there still is like an energy that fills a room, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're waving your arms
Sure,
around.
of course.
And similarly, like Robin Williams on camera, he could be really over the top in some ways, and if it was grounded, it could really work.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's totally one thing or the other. There's on the other hand, if you're like completely making crazy faces in an emotional scene on camera, you're going to look like a moron.
Sure.
So that doesn't necessarily work. So it's like, yeah, you have to have certain technique in being able to sort of hone it in.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, like La Vie Boheme in the Rent movie. There was we wonder, or I don't know if everybody did, but I wondered, okay, here's this big song. We're dancing and singing on tables. We're like, it's super high energy. Do we have to rein it in for the camera? Is it going to be too much? And then I think we discovered that no, because the song demands that. If we reined it in, it wouldn't ring true.
Sure.
So it's like the camera is like it's like a truth serum.
Interesting.
It's like it will pick up bullshit. and it's bullshit if you're doing something that should be full out and you're holding back. That's bullshit.
Gotcha.
Same way if you're like doing something where if you're like overdoing it, over emoting, then that's bullshit. So it's like you got to find the happy medium.
Do you consider yourself, and this is going to sound like I'm blowing smoke, but stick with me. Do you consider yourself like an expert at acting? Like the way you talk about it right there, right? Like I'm wondering how you got to that point where you have those experiences and you come into a character or a role of production and you sit there and you look at it and you figure out what you need to do in that space.
An expert. I mean, I consider myself I consider myself having a really good skill set and a lot of experience, and I've had a lot of training.
Sure.
So expert. Who do you, I would like to believe I'm in a high level, high caliber, but I guess I never self-reflectively went like, I'm an expert.
Well, yeah, exactly. I know it's a weird, stupid thing to say.
But it's, I do think I have a certain kind of, I have an expertise, I guess, if that makes any sense.
How long do you think it took you to feel I got this kind of feel?
When I was like a teenager, is when I started to feel like maybe I could.
Yeah.
So I'd been acting since I was 6.
Sure.
And then I did this play called Precious Sons, which didn't run very long, but it was in New York with Ed Harris and Judith Ivey.
Okay.
I'm sure you know Ed Harris.
Oh yeah, of course.
An amazing actor. And there was a director named Norman Renee who then went on to direct Prelude to a Kiss, which he did the film of, and he did Longtime Companion, which was a film in the 90s about AIDS and HIV. And being with those people and like I started kind of become awake to what, I don't know, capital A acting could be.
Sure.
Then I thought, I might have some real, like, this is beyond just sort of like instinctually like showing up.
Sure.
Like where I could have some technique or skill.
Silly question, I assume, but you would always plan, like, there's that moment where you can see you can do more, there's going to be skill, capital A acting. Before that moment, you had still thought this was going to be your profession in your life?
I don't think I thought I thought in those terms.
Yeah.
I was just doing it. I loved it. And it was just like an opportunity that, I think my mom was raised in a household where she had to really struggle to have her voice heard, and she wanted to be a nurse, and she went and did that. She made that happen for herself, but she didn't have a lot of support.
Sure.
So I think she really made sure that she was going to support us no matter what we wanted to do.
And that's the other thing too for this whole story, especially with the threat of your mom. She's traveling with you for the year, obviously focusing on you. Passionate about acting. What about your brother and sister?
It was hard for them, and as adults, we've gotten a chance to talk about it. Like I wasn't as aware of it as a kid, but
Were you the youngest?
I was the youngest,
okay.
So it was challenging for them for sure.
Yeah.
We've all come through it, but it was like best intentions on my mom's part, but I think there were things that made it hard for them for sure.
Sure, yeah, having mom be away or whatever with you or whatever.
Yeah. And there would be times when they would join us a little bit, but then they also had like her sister would come and stay with them, or and so it was challenging. Because they were teenagers. I mean, that's a really hard time anyway. So.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing I feel like as you try to juggle all of that. I'm sure they had their own passions, right?
My brother he's turned into this amazing writer and director. But at the time, he was like super into sports. So he was like he was like state level, like track and field and basketball. He had a basketball scholarship, and mom was supportive of that and encouraging of it, but she was like a little more into the arts too. So she wasn't as much of a sports. I'm going to miss your game
because I'm taking Anthony to this audition to go do this thing.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're all good now?
Yes.
Okay,
good. Yeah, we've collaborated, my brother and I. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What has he written stuff for people?
He's written a lot of stuff. I mean, he's got like I don't even know how many novels now. A lot of them are young adult novels.
I hate my brother Anthony.
Pretty much. No, there's actually a novel that it's not directly about a relationship, but that sort of touches on aspects of our sibling relationship called Punkzilla. That's such a good novel. Okay. But he wrote and was one of the co-showrunners on The Looming Tower, which was on Hulu last year. And every time I talk to him, he's got like 8 or 10 things that are in various stages of development.
Sure.
So
that's the writer's life, I feel. Every time I talk to him, he'll be like, and years later, what happened to that thing? Oh, I got killed, but I'm on this thing and that thing and doing that. And
He was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for one of his plays, Red Light Winter. I mean, he's a badass.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big super fan, but he's my brother, so I think I'm pretty objective, but he's pretty brilliant.
Okay.
Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to take a second and tell you about our amazing sponsors for this week's episode. The first of which is HelloFresh. HelloFresh is a meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy. HelloFresh makes conquering the kitchen a reality with delicious, simple recipes. They do all the meal planning, shopping, prepping, so you can focus on a healthier you and happier family. You get seasonal simple recipes and pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door every week. Fresh pre-measured ingredients and easy to follow 6-step picture recipe cards are delivered to your door each week in special insulated box. You spend less time meal planning and grocery shopping so you can get that time back to do more of what you love. They have 3 plans to choose from: classic, veggie, and family, with options to switch between for when your tastes change. Gia has tried this and liked it a lot. She recommends it. I looked online and took a look at some of the recipes they got coming up. Oh, let me tell you, Kev. Let me whet your palate here, Kev. We got the seasonal beef tacos that look fantastic, and the cherry balsamic pork chops that, let me tell you, made me hungry. And I just ate lunch, and I'm already hungry again, thanks to HelloFresh. Here's the deal, everyone. You want to take advantage of this. You can go to for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh. Go to hellofresh.com/morning80 and enter morning80. That's again for $80 off your first month of HelloFresh. Go to hellofresh.com/morning80 and enter morning80. There you go. Our next sponsor is Zebit. Listen, everyone. Nobody likes zero of anything. Like when you break your phone and lose contact with the outside world, 0 calls, 0 texts, 0 social media. Honestly, life without a phone means pretty much 0 everything. Having 0 of anything is hardly ever a good thing unless we're talking Zebit. That's Zebit. They'll change your whole perspective on zero forever. Here's what Zebit is, ladies and gentlemen. Zebit provides a better credit option for those who need it. They allow you to buy what you need and pay over time interest-free. It's pretty awesome. With Zebit, there's no cost to join, no membership fees, no late fees. Also, they do not check your credit score, which is good, because I'm always worried about that. You know what I mean, Kevin? Whenever you sign up for something, you're like, is this going to affect my credit?
It's going to ding my credit.
Is it going to ding my credit? Because right now I have pretty good credit, and I don't want that to go down. It's the only good thing about me. I'm not a tall man.
No, you're
but
not.
I do have good credit.
5'7". We
How dare you, sir? How dare you? And your Zebit account does not affect your credit score. Zebit has everyday items at everyday prices. They have more than 50,000 products in the marketplace with brand names like Xbox, Sony, Apple, GoPro, and Fitbit. From electronics to barbecues, furniture, and more, Zebit has everything you need for when you need it. Zebit has a 5-star rating on Trustpilot, and they've earned the trust of more than 1 million customers who shop on Zebit. Sign up for Zebit today at zebit.com/morning and get $2,500 credit to shop the debit marketplace at 0 interest and 0 cost to join. That's zebit.com/morning for $2,500 of interest-free credit. Zebit.com/morning. Now back to the show.
So then, capital A acting. You know this is what you're doing. You know there's a future here. How does that change the way you go into jobs or jobs you take or what you're looking for?
I mean,
Is it like beer where I don't like beer, so I'm not going to do that?
A little bit. I mean, I've given the opportunity to do things that I really liked and thought there was something to them. The one big exception was Twister. I can't remember if we talked about that last time.
We didn't talk about Twister last time.
So Twister happened between, I did the workshop of Rent. It was a 10-performance, 3-week little mini thing.
So I was gonna say, for somebody like myself who doesn't know, a workshop means it's not full blown. You're learning.
You sort of like, we had minimal sets. We had like some costumes. We did have lights and sound. We were off book. We had rehearsed it and blocked it, but it was only 10 performances, and it was for a very limited audience, and it's for the creative team to see what it is, to get it up on its feet. There was Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, had been given a grant, and the grant stipulated that the theater had to use that money to do this sort of mini production.
Gotcha.
And that's a way to, like with a musical especially, you can't really know what you have until you have all those things, because it's like there's so many elements. Like a film, if you read the script, it's one thing, but you don't know what it's like until you've filmed it and
feel
put it
the
together.
energy. Yeah.
So that happened. It was, this small thing, but I could tell it was something really amazing, special. And then I did a couple other off-Broadway plays that were also really like artistically fulfilling and meaningful.
Yeah.
And then I got Twister, and I really needed the money. I was like, those things were off-Broadway. It was like paid $300 a week. It was like really tough to make scrape by. I got cast in Twister. I was like, okay, it's a movie and they're paying me some better money, so I'll go do it. And
Helen Hunt, let's go.
It was just like, we were essentially extras. I mean, and there's nothing against extras.
Oh, sure.
But that's not why I want to do what I do.
Yeah.
And so there was a day, for instance, where we were in I don't know if you saw the movie.
Oh, come on now. Come on.
So you remember
everyone
that?
in the world's seen Twister. All right.
Oh, good for you. So you remember the
Nick, you seen Twister? Yeah, he's seen. Hell yeah, he's seen Twister.
When it's on, you have to watch.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. So you know the big
Oh, boy.
the big black. Do you remember the big black camper van that Carrie
They had
Elwes' team?
They had the thing on the top that they wanted to
Right?
put up in the thing with
so
the ping pong
I
ball.
was a part of Carrie Elwes' team, right?
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah.
like the enemy.
Yeah, you were the bad. You're bad Twister. We gotta chart this Twister before they can do it.
So there was a day we were driving around in that thing, blacked out windows. We were inside this van on a highway, going up and down the highway with a helicopter shot. And they made us be inside that
Why the
thing
hell would you have to be in the
for
van?
hours. And we were like, they can't see us.
Are you doing dialogue? Are you doing it for anything?
No. It was crazy. Like it was like the experience of being like the tiniest little cog in this huge machine.
Yeah.
And it was just like so antithetical to any reason why I do this job, you know? And so it was like the lowest creative professional experience I've ever had.
Wow.
And then came back around Rent. We did, a couple months later.
Yeah, I was gonna say what's the disconnect between Rent, right?
Yeah, yeah. So then it was like, oh yeah. So in a way, I'm grateful for like having experienced the total bottom of the barrel in terms of what the whys and wherefores of why I do this. So, but that goes back to your question of like why, if I were given the chance to be a part, like so for instance, being a part of Star Trek Discovery, right? That's an amazing experience. If it was like some procedural like lame thing where I'm just like
CSI
spouting,
Nevada.
like just spouting nonsense week after week, I think I would say no.
Yeah, all right.
I would just, I like life is too short for me.
No. I mean, that's the thing. You got to do things you believe in, right?
Yeah.
So then you talked about Rent earlier in this show, right? Of this like moment for you, right? You said when you're doing the workshop and you're reading script, it's something special. You think it's something special.
Yeah.
What's it like to do it and then have Rent become Rent?
I mean, so I did the workshop. I would tell people, I think, we're going to do it again. I think it's going to make a little bit of a splash. I thought that it could make a kind of an impact. I certainly never imagined it would be, on the cover of Newsweek, a huge, totally sold out Broadway.
I mean,
none of that seemed possible.
I'm sure I don't need to explain this, but kids that nowadays with their cell phones and they got their pagers, they don't understand that, like back in the day, there was the time where it was like, there'd be musical theater that broke through, right? You're talking about like Les Mis, you're talking about Cats, you're talking about these things that like, even if you don't know anything about musical theater, you're hearing about that. And I remember when Rent crossed that line and people were like in my school with the CD and talking about it.
Yeah. And we were on like Letterman, we were on, the Tonight Show. We like all these things that now it's more, now that like musical theater is sort of, Rent was part of the beginning of that, or at least of that era. It had been a while since like Les Mis or Phantom.
That you had to break out where it was cool. Musicals are cool. Musical theater's cool.
Yeah. And Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, was like really committed to like changing the face of it. He was sick of, like musical theater being like uncool.
Yeah.
He wanted it to matter. He wanted it to mean something. So looking back on it, it's like I always talk about Rent, it burst a dam, that no one knew was there. And like, when you burst a dam, incredible amount of energy rushes in.
Sure.
Like all that water, like all that stuff that's behind it breaks through. That's what it seemed like in retrospect. Beforehand, you would have thought the dam was too high and too strong. You could never break through because, it was a show about AIDS and HIV and drug use and
the things everybody loves to talk about.
Yeah. And there was a drag queen and there were, gay and lesbian relationships and mixed race relationships. And that did not seem like that was in any way, shape, or form going to be a mainstream success.
Yeah.
But then again, you look back, it's like there was such a hunger for that kind of representational storytelling. Sure. And that's the thing we're talking about now, 23 years later, like the capital R representation, hashtag, all that stuff. Yeah. Own voices, all that movement. That's something that we were a part of and was that our director and Jonathan were very mindful of back when it wasn't being talked about. That it's important to shine a light on these stories that aren't being told,
100%.
And that there's a hunger for it.
How long are you on Rent for? Because you're on the original run. Like, how long are you there for?
2 years in New York, and then 6 months in London.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was like having been around the business long enough at that point. I was like, I'm not going to just leave just to leave. Like, I'm gonna ride this out. And it was really hard. I mean, it was exhausting too.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, what you're doing?
8 shows a week, and then one Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. So it was like the weekend was like there were Saturday nights, especially the third one in the middle of that 5 shows. It was like sometimes I thought my head was going to fall off.
Right.
Like just like exhausting.
Yeah.
But like, and you have to power through, and we,
Is this
like being in a show is kind of like being an athlete. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the physical exertion you're
Yeah.
putting your body through and performing night after night. Yeah, 100%. Is this the show for you where the fame ratchets up, where you are like you're seeing more and more people stop you and talk to you?
Yeah. That was the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even like when I did Adventures Babysitting, that was, it wasn't like huge shit, but it did pretty well.
Yeah.
But like I saw it in my local mall in Joliet, and like no one cared. Like it wasn't, it was fine. Like, and I was walking around the halls of my high school, and people, like a couple people would say things, but it was still no big deal.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But Rent was where it kind of turned that corner.
Yeah.
And there was like, we were on the covers of magazines, and we were like, on late night television and on the Tony Awards broadcast and all that kind of stuff.
Where does the movie fall within that? Did you already leave the
Rent
show?
movie?
Yeah.
Oh, that was years later. Yeah.
So then let's, before we even get there, what you said you weren't just going to leave. Why did you leave after 2 years and 6 months?
In the original cast, there's 15 actors, and there's sort of 8 principals and 7 ensemble members, and I was the last of the 8 principals to be there. And after a while, I was like starting to really miss my friends, and I was
you're not as good as this other guy was.
A little bit sometimes. No, mostly we were pretty lucky. But and my mom had passed away, so I was like holding on to that. Like it was the last thing that she'd seen me do. It was really hard to think about what was going to be next.
Yeah.
But then we got the opportunity to go to London, and that was always a dream to get to play on the West End.
Sure.
So 4 of us from the original cast went and did that. And then by then I was like, okay, I think I have to start thinking about transitioning. I can't do this forever.
Did you at the time know one of the reasons you were hanging on was your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. Because I just thought like it's going to be, what am I going to do? Whatever I'm going to do next is going to be weird.
Sure.
So I want to be mindful about it.
Yeah.
And the next thing I did was Your Good Man Charlie Brown, and that's one of the shows that I did when I was 7.
Okay.
So there was this really
So you found
great,
a workaround.
Yeah, I mean, there was a really great thread connecting her to me in that show, and so that was very helpful. And it was also a much like quieter show. Like it wasn't as exhausting.
Sure.
So it was just a good transitional experience for sure.
After you leave, do you have a moment like, man, I shouldn't have left, or why did I leave?
No,
or?
I was ready. I mean, I was physically ready. I mean, it's a big load to carry.
Yeah.
When I was around, like I knew some of the Hamilton people, and like that was always my question, like how are you taking care of yourself? Because that show is a beast. And like just take care of yourself, because it's ride this wave for sure, enjoy every moment of it, and make sure that you're like taking care of yourself.
Which means really getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
not
like
going to the after party every time.
Yes. And because to me, it's also really important. If you're doing 8 shows a week, you show up for 8 shows a week, unless you're really sick, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Or you're injured or something.
But you're not putting yourself in the position that the reason you're not there is because you screwed up, or you drank too much, or you partied too hard.
And we had one of those. There was an actor a British actor in London who was doing that, and she sometimes would do 3 shows a week, and we were like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
Because that was so not us.
Yeah. I assume for any production, right? That's got to be a morale hit, right? That you're all there trying to kill yourself, get a rhythm.
Yeah. Be like it's like I'm a big baseball fan. I see you got 100 pence
over
there. Yeah. It's the same thing. If you had a teammate who was like showing up hungover and striking out 4 times a game,
sure,
you'd be like, "What the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Get it together," kind of thing.
Yeah. We had that here, but then Nick started KFAF, and it's good now. So
good.
It's fine.
Good.
Got him, Kevin. Rung him up.
Good.
We got him.
Good. Well done.
How dare you? So then, when they come to the movie, are you like, I'm over this, or like?
No. So there was a period. I'm pretty sure this is public record. There was a period where Spike Lee was going to direct the movie.
Okay.
And he met with all of us, and he was apparently going to use some of us, but not all of us. And apparently, he was not going to use me. But they were getting ready to go to production, and he and Miramax, #Harvey Weinstein, who's as we know is now canceled.
A dirtbag. Yeah.
But they were having fights about the budget, so that got like scuttled right before it was going to go to production. So there was like new life. It's sort of the rights kind of like wandered around for a minute, and then Chris Columbus, who I'd worked with on Adventures of Babysitting,
Long time ago, yeah.
And I remember when he had come to see Rent, he'd loved it, and he was so excited by it and so moved by it. So when it came out that he was going to be doing it, I was like, maybe there's a chance for me. And then he and his producing partners, what they wanted to do was meet with us. He wanted to use the original cast as much as possible, but he wanted to meet with us to make sure we weren't like too old, and which is totally understandable. And it was the kind of thing like I went in for the meeting and it was like clear like within 10 seconds like, oh yeah, this is okay, this works. And then but then they had to get like I guess whatever studio approval. And then we got the I was on tour with Little Shop of Horrors, which I actually did in San Francisco also at the Golden Gate Theater.
Who were you playing?
Seymour.
You were Seymour. Suddenly Seymour.
And it was my birthday and we were landing in Salt Lake City. We land, I turn my phone on, it rings, and it's my manager telling me that the Rent movie's happening.
That's awesome.
And it was...
And you're like, fuck you, Little Shop of Horrors. Yes. I'm out.
No, I was actually doing the show at night. We did rent the movie, a lot of it here, because Chris is from here. Or he was living here at the time, rather. And he was very committed to giving work to local crews.
Yeah.
So I was rehearsing the movie during the day and doing Little Shop at night.
In San Francisco?
In San Francisco for like the last couple weeks of my run with Little Shop.
That's awesome.
And I left. So it was like, it was hard.
I imagine.
It was hard.
Yeah. So from there you go on and you're one of the, you go back to New York. Well, how long have you lived in New York? Is it since the Rent stuff the first Rent?
No, I've lived in New York since '89. I went to NYU for one semester.
Okay.
To film school.
And you're like, I learned everything I need to learn. Bye, guys.
No, I was like I was paying for it myself, and they had I qualified for financial aid, but they ran out of it, so they didn't have anything to give me.
Sure.
So I was like, I can't afford it. It's like one of the most expensive schools in the country. It's more expensive than some of the Ivy League schools. And so I dropped out, and then I got 6 Degrees of Separation, which is a play that became a movie with Will Smith and Stockard Channing. Yeah. And I was also in both. So I'm like in both the original of 6 Degrees and the film version and the original of Rent and the film version. Those are like little notches on my little belt.
You can do it all. You know what I mean? You're
well,
a crossover
not just that,
player.
but I'm like happy that I'm like, there's not a lot of people who get to do both.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm really, I'm
do you
proud
find like when you stepped away from Rent, did you ever go back and watch a production with other people?
A lot.
Was it weird to watch somebody do your character?
Sometimes, but it wasn't weird when they were good. I mean it. There were times when I wanted to punch them though.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? There's like things you have, like, you have a responsibility. And if they're just up there like trying to be like Star Search or do shtick or something, I just want to slap them.
Okay.
I'm not violent, but I want to.
No, I know what you mean.
Well,
you have an ownership to that, right?
Yeah.
And you love obviously the property. You want to make sure it's treated correctly.
And then when there were times when I saw someone really good, I was really proud and moved and happy for them and happy for it.
Do you, Anthony, I know you well. You're a cool friend, obviously. We talk on the internet. You've done Games Daily. You've done a Games Cast by this point. Wink.
Yeah.
We're recording Games Cast after this. Are you like a publicist's nightmare? Do you bullshit when you get interviewed, or do you give straight answers on every interview you do?
I give straight answers, truly.
So are they like, don't fucking put Rapp on camera? Don't let him talk to
I don't
anybody.
know. I mean, I can, we get talking points for Star Trek. I mean, I'm good at like not spoiling things.
Well, sure, I know that, but I mean, like,
yeah, no, I mean, whatever, I haven't had anybody take me aside and say, you got to, correct that.
Yeah.
I try to be responsible in how I talk about things, but yeah, I try to be honest too.
No, yeah.
I did this interview recently with Couch Surfing, which is like a People magazine, Entertainment Weekly, like internet.
Sure.
And I talked about experiences I had with Yul Brynner, and I didn't even think about talking about it beforehand. And then I was like, it comes out of my mouth. I'm like, well, that's out of the bag, and it's okay. I mean,
what?
He punched me in the stomach once when I was backstage.
How old are you?
He went like, get out of my way. He went like that. He didn't go like this.
Yeah.
He went, get out of my way, and he punched me in the stomach. I was 10.
10.
And it was crazy. It was crazy, but it was such a different era. This is 1982.
Sure.
My mom and I were really super naive. We just sort of like, what do we do? Like, there wasn't any thinking like, do you have any recourse? We just were like, oh, it's like a whole different, it's just interesting to look back on it now with knowing everything we know about what we can do to people in power who abuse their power. Yeah. But back then there was no possibility that we could do anything
for the Yul Brynner thing, was it like he was being an asshole? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in his way.
Okay.
But I was barely in his way. I was, in theaters there's wings.
Yep.
I was here, like if this is the curtain, here's the stage. I was here waiting to go on for the curtain call, and he's exiting at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And we were in a new theater, so every theater's the room is a little different.
You gotta learn it.
And I hadn't been in the show that long at that point, and he's coming off stage, and I'm here, and he's like, I'm sort of in his way, and he goes, get out of my way, and he goes like that. and he punched. You know, again, he didn't walk up to me and cold.
But you're a 10-year-old child. Yeah. You weren't expecting that kind of a.
And like now, if that sort of thing were to happen, I think it would be major repercussions.
Yeah.
But back then we were like, oh, okay. And then like his production manager apologized to us later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just so it's interesting to think about this story in the context of now too. You know,
do you have those moments all the time now where you're thinking about the stuff that, like
mostly I was really treated well. Like I had a tremendous amount of like people, like even though I was this kid, like people treated me like a peer.
Sure.
For the most part.
Sure.
They didn't like condescend to me. They were really, people were really friendly with me and supportive. But then there was, you know, he was mean. You know, but I think also like being around him at that age, it was such a formative time, and I learned so deeply what I would never want to be in a professional setting. You know,
so that's interesting. It was. I was wondering if it was a flare up once, but he was just a dick all the time.
Yeah, he was always just sort of like scary. He was scary.
Yeah,
he was like the king. He was playing the king, and he was like the king. One time, this is my, if I'm ever on Letterman, Letterman not anymore. I guess he does the Netflix show.
Yeah, Netflix show.
But like if I'm ever, like I've never been like the guy on like a late night show. So I have like the.
You've never been the guy? They've never had you sit down?
I've never been the guy. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've been in like I performed in the show.
Yeah.
But then but my one like sort of anecdote, I think.
Lay it on me.
So at the end of The King and I, there's a scene where his character's dying. Spoiler alert.
Oh fuck.
And I played the school teacher's son. So the I is the school teacher who's come to Siam to help, you know, take care of his kids. And so they have a falling out. They have a big fight. And then she's going to be leaving. It's this dramatic scene. He's dying. He's all the way in the front of the stage. And he's on his deathbed. And she's down there talking to him. And it's this tense scene. And then at one point, a boat whistle blows. And I had to run to the back of the stage, up these stairs. And from the back of the stage say, "Mother, it's the boat." And I didn't have a microphone, so I'd have to project it.
Play to the back of the house.
And we were playing these 3,000 seat theaters. And one night I run to the back of the stage and I go, "Mother, it's the boat." And in front of 3,000 people, Yul Brynner goes, "Louder."
Dude, fuck this guy. Am I wrong? This guy sucks.
No, he died. He's dead.
Okay, good,
He's
says
dead.
Nick.
He's dead. So, you know, these are the moments that I had with him.
I'm sorry.
You know,
but hey, made you the person you are today, right?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were hard, but I survived them. But I learned, never to treat people badly.
Sure.
Also from that.
Sure.
I think.
We were talking about this, I think, a bit when our cameras broke. Do you feel like we're in that position? You were talking like, is that the mentality so many people have now because they've come up through the system? Like, obviously, there's dicks everywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, are there?
I'd like to believe that, and certainly in our work environment, I can speak very specifically about in Star Trek Discovery right now. Like, there's no question that if somebody came on our set and was treating people badly, we would absolutely have recourse. We could go to the powers that be, we could talk about it, and it would get addressed. I have no doubt about that. And I would like to believe that that's being more and more the case across the board.
Sure.
But yeah, there's always been this sort of unfortunate mentality that you kind of have to put up with it.
Sure.
You know, because they have the power and you don't. Well, it turns out maybe that's not quite so true anymore.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. How could that only
100%,
be,
right? I mean, that was the thing. I think for so many of these stories where it is the curtains pull back and people aren't like, "Oh, well, we're going to let it slide." It's like, "Oh my God, fuck you.
Yeah.
Get out of here."
Yeah, you're canceled.
Yul Brynner.
Yeah, you're canceled. And you should be.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, you know, but again, back then, nothing. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. It didn't seem like any other thing was possible.
Sure.
And now we know it is possible.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So you take note.
Kevin, don't listen to him. Kevin, don't listen to him.
Mistreat your people.
Gives as good as he gets.
Interesting.
Oh, what do you got to say, Kevin? I see you turn on the mic.
Anthony, you're making a lot of sense.
Don't listen to him, Kevin.
You're making a lot of sense.
Kevin, no. No one else would put up with you, all
I'm
right?
not covering for you anymore, Greg Miller. I'm not covering for you anymore.
This interview is over. Anthony.
Yes.
We have a section on We Have Cool Friends called The Friend Zone, where we reach out to the kind of funny best friends and let them ask questions. Nick Scarpino,
But
you've been waiting.
You know that refers to, though, like friend zoning someone, like if they want to get with you.
But it's like a double entendre.
I understand.
It's a double
But
entendre.
I just want to be responsible for that being put out in the universe.
Sure. No, we're aware that, yes.
I am friend zoning all of them because I am taken. That's all I'm saying.
Nick Scarpino, you're in the friend zone. What would you like to ask Anthony right
now? Oh, you were in the you were actually in the friend zone.
We have people come in all the time. I have the questions from Patreon, but
you want to start with me?
Is he off camera though?
Yeah, he's also
voice.
Nobody's
Just
ever
voice.
seen
Disembodied
Nick.
voice. They know
Nobody's
what I
seen
look
Nick.
like.
Voice.
My hair looks
Okay.
like shit today. anyways.
I'm ready.
So obviously we love Star Trek Discovery, and kudos
Thank
to you.
you.
That show is fantastic. One of the things I really, really, really like about it, and my wife pointed this out, was she's watched a lot of Discovery with me, but she was like, this is a really, A, tremendously diverse cast, but B, she was like, I'm looking at a frame right now, and I see predominantly like a strong women cast.
Yes.
And it actually took me back for a second, because I was like, you know what? I'm thinking back through all of the Star Treks that I've watched, and I'm like, it's almost weird to not see 10 dudes and one woman.
I know, and that is really intentional, and I'm really glad that you guys are picking up on it.
It's really cool.
But
it's shocking at first.
Yeah.
Was that something that you guys are like very proud of?
Very proud of. And I will say the finale, which will have aired by the time you're watching
spoil
this.
it for us. We
The
haven't
only
watched
thing
it.
I'm going to spoil is that pretty much every major like save the day moment in the finale is women. Every single one.
That's great.
And
Tilly.
it's like that is something, and there's no thing made about it. There's no one on the screen going, "Hey, you were a woman. Thank you, woman, for saving us." It's just is the case.
Sure.
And that's really cool, and that's really important. And there are, of course, people on the interwebs who are like, Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue.
Oh, the SJW's making
Yes.
this show. I want to
Yes.
make sure that
Yes.
everyone understands women.
Yes.
But that's honestly one of the things that I like the way the team has approached this, though, because it's not outwardly rubbed in your face.
Of course,
it's just
it's
very
like-
well written
yeah.
characters
Yeah.
and it makes sense and feels very validating when they go out and do these things. Another question for Discovery.
Well, before you jump off that, I like that's what as we've talked about it obviously, and I've talked a little bit on other shows about it, but like for me, falling in love with Star Trek Discovery comes from a place of not knowing Star Trek, right? Like I'd seen the movies and I was like, oh, these are cool, but I'm not gonna go back and watch them. And then it was like, oh, I started watching the show because we got the gig or whatever, and I'd heard it was good, and I know Nick loved it. And when I started watching it, I started watching it for the job, and then totally fell in love with it. Didn't cancel CBL Access, and I'm all about it. But what I've always dug about it is this future that is Star Trek Discovery, where it is that all the norms people in our time are hung up on, no one is hung up on.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And that goes back to the original vision that Gene Roddenberry had, which was that in the future we will have handled that stuff. Although there is an early episode of the original series where there is somebody who's kind of racist toward Spock, like being upset about him being a Vulcan. So that was how he touched on it. He used the alien beings.
100%. That's the whole thing. Is there we can see why? Well, of course not. But then of course apply that to you, right?
Yeah.
These are what the metaphors are.
Yeah, but there's no. There's a moment in The Cage, which was the original pilot, where Pike, the character, is like, "I'm not used to a woman on the bridge," But I think that they felt they had to acknowledge it. They had to like wink to it or tip their hat to the audience.
Yeah.
We're aware we have women on the bridge. But yeah, in our case, we don't have any commentary on these factors of these characters.
Nicholas.
Follow-up question for Discovery. There is a scene, and I forget which episode it was for season 2, and I'm sure you've gotten asked about this before, where it's you, Michelle Yeoh, and I forget the other actor's name that plays your partner.
Wilson Cruz.
Yes. What was it like hearing the words "Poppy" come out of her mouth?
First of all, I mean, where do I start? So
It's a great scene, by the way.
I love Michelle Yeoh so much as a actress. First, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was the first time I encountered her, and I was like, she's unbelievable. So she was like an icon for me. And then I found out she was going to be in our show. But then I didn't think I'd ever really have a chance to work in a scene with her, but just because of the way our characters are. Sure. So when I got that script and I saw that I had this scene with her, I was like vibrating, giddy, totally giddy. And then she's like, and her character's flirting with me?
Yeah.
And she is the...
Well, not only flirting with you, but alluding to...
No, all of that. Yeah, so when she's saying Poppy, and she's having a blast doing it.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get to do this kind of stuff very often, She's having such a good time. She's also like, she is a true international super... You're talking about people who are famous.
Yeah.
Like, especially in Asia. But she's like a true like superstar icon. Like, she's a hero.
Yeah.
Right? She is the most down-to-earth, sweetest, kindest, warmest, most grounded... One of the most I've ever worked with, and she's so hard work. She's incredible. She's an incredible person. So that was a thrilling day. to be on set.
I bet. I mean, and also it speaks volumes to the material as well. I mean, you guys are all obviously killing it, but I mean, Michelle Yeoh coming off of like Crazy Rich Asians, and it was one of those things where I saw the cast and I saw her. I was like, oh, cool, she'll do maybe a guest spot in the first.
And
couple
that's what
episodes.
I was afraid of, right? In the pilot, or no
and
spoilers.
it looks like she's having more fun. I mean, no offense to you guys, it looks like she's having more fun than anyone on set.
Yeah, I think she is
Getting to play this kind of double character.
Yeah, and then and she works with Gersha Phillips, our amazing costume designer, and like she can do anything with like she's like, here's Gersha. Gersha's like, what about this outfit? And Michelle's like, sure, because she's like
corsets.
all that stuff. I mean, it's really a dreamy experience for her. And she was all like me, I think, reluctant to do a TV series because we always hear like if you get on a TV series, you get stuck on it, and if it's not good, then and so much of the writing can be lame and all that stuff, and it's like the opposite.
How'd they sell you on this then? Were you, I mean, like outside? Like,
well, no, I mean, it was like I got an offer to do Star Trek. I mean, that was it.
Okay.
That was enough.
Okay.
But my first offer, though, was for a smaller role. And then when Brian Fuller was fired, the people who took over for him were like, they'd been looking for a Stamets, and they really wanted to cast someone who was out. Like that was sort of like, you have this openly gay character the first time on Star Trek. We want it to be an openly gay actor.
Sure.
And then so they had a list, and they were like looking at the list and like, wait, he's already here, so why don't we just give him this?
Sure.
So it was like, it just like fell out of the sky in the most incredible. I never auditioned, so it's like, it's crazy.
You talk about Gersha Phillips.
Yeah,
Met her at the premiere as
she's
well.
so cool.
Do you think she would make me and Nick outfits that we could? We'll pay for them, but we want to have our own bridge stuff because then we could go to cons like that. We don't have to be Ghostbusters.
But the question
anymore.
is, do we do?
Oh, can she make Kevin a Klingon? I'm in.
The question is, do we do Discovery's uniform or do we do Enterprise's uniform?
You can do Enterprise.
I don't know if you've gotten Enterprise's yet in the series. But it is. There are so many amazing moments in this where, if you're a fan of the original series, there's so many nods. There's a couple of things that happen. I don't want to spoil it in this season. I don't know if you've gotten to her yet.
Yeah.
But specifically with like the Enterprise and with the original like Captain of the Enterprise Pike.
Yeah.
Yep.
That just
Anson Mount.
Yep.
It just is so cool that they're doing this stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I'm going to talk your ear off.
I think it's gonna. I think
No, go ahead.
If by the end of tonight's episode, which will have aired, obviously, if the people who are still like skeptical about how we fit in, if all of that isn't settled for them after tonight, then we will never be able to reach them.
It was settled for me the second I realized where Pike was going, and I'm like, this is absolutely genius. This is really, really freaking cool.
Cool.
Not only because obviously up against a pretty big challenge, they're trying to fit Kirk's shoes when you're being compared. So I really like what they've done with that.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you.
Last question on Discovery, and then we'll move on to my other favorite series. Your character at the beginning is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
How was that for you? And was that an intentional sort of like, did you work with the producers and the writers go, this is going to have an amazing arc?
No,
I mean,
it's
not like redemption, but it's just we're discovering this whole world with your character.
I like playing people who are complicated. I mean, it's fun to do things that are, dickish if it's appropriate. And I always felt like it was rooted in good reasons, for being like Stamets' standards are really high, so I can identify with that, having high standards. But then in the early going, all the stuff with Lorca was so unhappy. So I think that was really driving the
There's a lot of depth
energy.
to that, though. And that's kind of what I'm driving at, which is when I first started Discovery, I'm like, I'm not really used to Star Trek having this level of depth with the characters, because a lot of it's surface level so that you can get across some of the morality tales. Yeah. And then, when on Enterprise, you'd go in and they'd do like the episode with Riker, where it's like, we've got to discover this. But it was never, they were always these sort of like, we've already figured it out. We don't have any darkness in his characters. Yeah. And then yours character when we come to it in the first couple episodes, we're like, wow, this guy's he's in a place that's not good. Yeah. Necessarily. Yeah. And we've got to figure this out. And then obviously it plays into the backstory of the war, the impending war.
Yeah. And the other unusual thing, I mean, Deep Space Nine had some of this, but all of our characters are going through arcs. Like we're all changing. So that's something that we're asking the Star Trek audience to kind of get on board with. And some of them were like, totally on board with it, and some of them like, I don't understand, I don't like him, but maybe you will come to like somebody if you get to know them.
But I like that. It's not spoon-fed, right?
Yeah,
and it requires a little bit of patience, which for a Star Trek show is it's cool that they did that. It's a risk, but it's good.
Yeah, thank you.
Segueing over to my other favorite show, I'm currently watching, I think I'm on season 5 of Psych.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I haven't quite got caught up to Psych the musical yet.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to ask you what that experience was.
That was so
like.
fun.
Was it?
Yeah, it was so fun. It was another one that they just sort of called me up and said, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Sure." I didn't know the show. I hadn't seen it. I don't watch much TV. They were so friendly, and like Dule Hill is a Broadway guy. Like he'd done Tap Dance Kid, so they were just like, You know, when you I've learned now, like Sonequa Martin Green, who's our lead.
Yep. She's
an incredible number one on the call sheet. She's like great. Like anybody who comes on the set, she's like welcoming. But then other times you could be on a set and like they could give a shit. You know what I mean? They're just doing their job and they don't
you're
care.
some part-time or whatever.
Right? Yeah. So they were like Sonequa. They were like, welcome. You're great. It was really fun. Yeah.
Because it seems like those guys are having a lot of fun when they do that show. When you stepped into that, were you like, was it cool kind of having more experience than everyone else on set as far as like as far as that level of performance?
I mean, I don't know if it was cool. I mean, I feel like there was some like, yeah, they were excited. It was nice that they felt like excited.
Not
that
to
I was like
James Roday,
yeah,
but
I was like a
legit.
legit, musical theater guy. I think that mattered. Yeah. Timothy
Olmanson, excuse me.
Yeah, he was especially like really into it and really, really, really nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good to know. Yeah, they're working on I think the second movie now, which is great for them.
Oh, cool.
So, they got another one coming out. All right, last question, and then we'll go to that. Sorry, are we okay on time?
You're doing great. Yeah, I slacked you, Kevin, if you want to go live on the Gamescast thing because we said 2, right?
Yeah, I'll set that up right now.
You can do it and then just show it that we can have the questions at the end of this. No big deal. So you might be live now. Don't curse.
Just lastly, shout out to obviously, like I'm sure people ask you this all the time, but Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
one of my favorite '80s movies. My wife's all-time favorite movie.
Yeah.
What was that? I mean, she loves it. Is it one of those like I don't know? Are there happy memories from that set?
100%.
Okay.
It was like I was totally spoiled. That it was like dreamy experience.
And that was your first major film, right?
My first film of any kind. So like, yeah, I go to set. I'm like, this is the first time I'm like working with cameras and trailers and crews.
And not only did you get to work with Chris Columbus, but you got Elizabeth Shue as well.
And she was awesome.
And that was pretty much like that was her really kind of ascension role to kind of making her a marketable star.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, she had done Karate Kid.
That's right. She done.
And I guess right after Adventures in Babysitting was when she did Cocktail, or it was like I can't remember what the order.
I think Cocktail was a little after. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she grew up with like 4 brothers. So she was like totally like hanging with all of us. She was totally unpretentious, really fun, and having the time of her life. It was great.
Awesome.
It was a great experience. And yeah, I have been pretty lucky overall with Twister being an exception. But I mean, it set a tone. It set a tone that's been upheld largely. In that you get good people together who really love what they do. You work hard. You have a lot of fun. It can be great, and then it really comes through on screen. I think.
Yeah, it's weird. You treat people with respect and expect greatness from them, and give them that back, and you get a good product.
Interesting.
That sounds really nice.
Crazy. I don't know if we'll internalize that here. Kevin.
Quiet down over there.
You know the weird thing about not weird. It's not that weird, I guess. But Adventures in Babysitting, when it came out, it did okay, but it wasn't like a big hit. But
really?
It has far outlasted so many of the films that came out that same summer.
You can blame Vincent D'Onofrio for that.
Sure.
I really feel like that cameo he had in that.
Yeah.
His Thor was the thing.
Yeah.
I have like 400,000 more questions, but I'll let it go back to the Patreon.
400,000.
That's a lot. Don't worry.
They paid good money for the privilege of
They did.
asking
To ask
these
you whatever
questions.
they want, and you said you'd answer it all.
That's true.
No, it's fine. Hey, everybody, first off, if you're watching right now and you're here for the live Kind of Funny Gamescast, we ran over on this episode we're recording of We Have Cool Friends, so we thought we'd give you a taste of the new show. This is Anthony. I'm Greg. He's my cool friend. We're into what we call on this show the Friend Zone, where your questions are being asked from Patreon. Friends.
Nailed it.
Michael Weathersby on patreon.com/kindoffunny says, hey, Anthony, I'm a newer SAG-AFTRA member in the LA area, actor. Any advice on how to book roles? I'd love to one day be on Discovery as my family are longtime Star Trek fans.
Well,
So I
Discovery.
was asking you, can you book them?
No, but Discovery is unfortunately out of your zone because it's filming in Toronto.
Sure.
I mean,
away
it's
from the
not
unions.
impossible, but it's not that easy because they have to cast a lot of Canadian actors also. There's
Is that the rule for getting the tax credits?
Yeah.
Gotcha,
So we
gotcha.
have like a lot of us are either American or English, and then there's a lot of the bridge crew actors are all Canadian. So it would be harder to get on Star Trek Discovery, for instance.
Sure.
But
In general, though, for booking roles.
you have an agent. That's one thing, but
Yeah.
there's all kinds of like websites that have listings, independent films, student films, like anything to build your resume and have opportunities to work with people because you just never know what those could turn into.
Sure.
And even if it's not like, even if it doesn't directly open a door, it could open a door like 5 years later. So,
Right.
Keep putting yourself into positions where you could, meet people and have opportunities.
Is cheesy and cliche to say there's like no small roles, like take any
of course, especially in the beginning. Yeah, absolutely.
because I feel like even for us, that's the thing where I was down shooting this WWE IGN thing yesterday, right? And some of those people on set, it is, man, I remember when we worked together 8 years ago, we both were nothings. This is the thing, and now we're here, right?
Yeah.
Those little connections you make and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you found that throughout your career, right?
Yeah,
You're
I
talking
mean,
director to director,
definitely,
like-
especially in theater. I mean, theater. Like I just a couple weeks ago, I did a couple readings and workshops, that were, like what we were talking about earlier, developmental stuff, and it's people I've known for years and years and years, and they just sort of like email and like, "Are you available for these days?" I'm like, "Sure." So it's like, and they're not going to necessarily be a big thing in my career, but it still is an experience, and you just never know.
Make those connections.
Yeah.
Mark Brinskill writes into patreon.com/kindafunny. It says, for Anthony, what are your thoughts on the impact of Rent on your career, but more importantly, pop culture and theater kids everywhere? Do you get that all the time now? Of like, I saw Rent and that's what made me want to go?
I totally get that all the time. Yeah. I mean, people who either enter into the field or it opens their eyes and ears up to other theater stuff that they had sort of maybe written off theater as being not for them. And so it says maybe their theater could also be a home for stories that speak to you.
Yeah.
And then I do think it was on like we talked about earlier, although these people haven't necessarily heard, but
don't worry about those
it was
people.
on the verge. It was the beginning, like at the cutting edge of representational storytelling too, and how important it is to talk about the nooks and crannies of the human experience that don't get always in the light of day. It's not just all rich white people all the time.
Just most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah. So we talked about that earlier in the show, the dam breaking, representational, and then also making theater cool again.
Sure, yeah.
Is theater cool right now? Is musical theater cool right now?
I think when it's at its best, sure. I mean, Hamilton is about as cool as it gets.
Sure.
And I think Hamilton's incredible. And when I saw it, I was like, people have been saying it feels kind of like Rent in a way, like the kind of impact that it's having is similar. So I feel like I got to experience it I never got to experience that aspect of seeing Rent, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you were making it, you were creating it.
So it was very moving to me to be at Hamilton's. Like, if this is at all what it was like to be in the audience for Rent, then I'm like even more proud because I think this is incredible. So when people are comparing them in a favorable way, that's really, really meaningful. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, has talked to me personally and also on the record about like Rent being such a formative thing for him as an artist, as a human being. So that line connecting them is really cool. So yeah, I think Hamilton's super cool. I think Mean Girls is fun and cool.
Yeah. How often do you go to the theater nowadays?
A lot. Yeah. I try to see pretty much all the big things that come through New York for sure.
Okay.
Dear Evan Hansen's cool.
Final friend zone question comes from one Amy Gilroy. If you were able to act in a serialized TV/streaming version of a video game like Netflix making The Witcher, which game would it be and which role would you play?
It's weird because I'm in Star Trek Discovery.
Sure.
So it's kind of similar-ish, I guess.
Mass Effect.
Mass
Mass
Effect.
Effect.
Mass Effect.
Who do you want to play in Mass Effect?
Oh, probably Morden.
Yeah, I can see that.
But that's like, again, then I'm the scientist. I mean... But
you're right. You're just ripping that character off on Discovery. All your choices, you hack.
You know, I mean, yeah. Who else would it be? Yeah, not that I would. I think it'd be cool to play Legion, too.
Oh, that'd be a really good one.
Something like
really
that.
Good one.
That storyline just killed me.
Yeah.
Like
that's what Mass Effect does best.
Oh my god.
Plays with your emotions and kills you.
Has there been anything since? No. I mean, Last of Us killed me.
Sure.
But it's a much different kind of experience.
Sure. Oh yeah.
It's so like funneled, wonderfully funneled. Mass Effect, there's so much like
threads and decision making and choices you make, right?
And the scope of the relationships and the worlds,
Who'd you romance?
I did it a couple different ways. Yeah.
Okay.
So Talia.
Sure.
And then I can't remember the names of characters. I'm sorry.
That's fine. The Krogan.
No. The guy who works who lost his husband or lost his partner, or he's like working in the
just a human.
Yeah, he's a human. He doesn't have a big part. I was
gonna say
he's like down in the weapons,
the engine room or whatever.
Yeah, the weapons.
Yeah, I don't know.
Place.
I did Garrus, so I don't know. I did romance Garrus.
Weird.
Why can't I just have
Garrus
some fun?
is awesome.
Garrus is a great dude.
Awesome.
He deserves some love. And then Mort gave us weird
But
conversation books.
that's not a good part for me. But I think he's a great character, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
That scene when they're shooting the things on the skywalk.
Yeah.
It was such a good scene.
Now, when you were on Games Daily before, we put out the call for you to get developers to hire you. Have you been hired yet?
Yeah. I haven't been officially hired.
If somebody hit you up?
I had a really good conversation with Mike Bithell.
There we go, guys. We're doing it. We're making it happen.
He's, there's nothing in the current project he's working on,
Sure.
but he's like,
Hey,
that
that's
is
a
cool.
connection that we're talking
I've been talking to the Star Trek Online guys, so I think
Nice.
that might turn into
Yeah, they're
something.
putting
at some
Tilly in
point.
there. They got to put you in there. Come on.
And then I'm hearing rumors about possibilities of other Star Trek games.
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to happen or not.
Sure.
There have been like attempts at other Star Trek games over the years.
Sure.
There was one that came out when the 09 movie, or like sometime after that, and I didn't play it. Apparently, it wasn't very good.
Yeah, I don't even remember it popping up, but yeah,
So-
that makes sense. They would have done some weird tie-in for that.
So yeah.
Okay. Final question for you. I already said Amy's would be. This is a simple one. This is Casey. What's your favorite boss in Bloodborne?
Lady Maria
Okay.
of the Astral Clock Tower.
Why?
It's a perfect duel. She's really hard, but she's like totally. If you just have to be really. If you're, it's like the whole thing with those games. If you're careful and patient,
Yeah.
and you don't overplay your hand, you can absolutely beat her. But she's really badass, and it's tough, but it's like fair. It's totally fair. It's a totally fair fight.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
All right.
What about you?
Oh, I don't play Bloodborne. Come on. You think I'm good enough for that? I don't have the patience for Bloodborne.
Really?
Yeah. I know I'm a monster. I thought it was the one that was most appealing to me because the Dark Souls never, Demon Souls and Dark Souls were too slow paced. At preview events, I would play Bloodborne and be like, oh, it's faster paced. I like it a little bit. And then it dropped and it was the normal thing of like, this is a weird presentation. What am I doing? What's happening? I'm going to go get an easy trophy by.
Greg.
If you want to hear Anthony talk more about video games, he's about to record the Kind of Funny Games cast for us. If you're not watching live, that means then it would have been, it's a couple games casts ago. You'll need to go back for it. He was on Games Daily as well. Anthony, where can people
It's
keep up with you?
timey-wimey. That's timey-wimey.
Yeah, I know. It's how the shows are, but
Yeah.
they get it.
I understand.
Where can
What's-
people keep up with you? Where do you want to direct people?
At Albino Kid on Twitter and at Albino Kid 1026, which is my birthday, on Instagram.
Okay.
Those are the best.
Okay, great.
ways. Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a cool friend.
Thank
I
you for
enjoy
being
talking.
my
I
cool
could talk to
friend.
you forever.
That's awesome.
And we're about to talk more. So I mean, that's how it
we're
works.
about to talk more.
But now we're just going to talk about video games.
Timey-wimey.
Go to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and you can look way back in the thing and find it there and do that stuff. You can also go to patreon.com/kindoffunny. Support We Have Cool Friends if you think this is it. That's We Have Cool Friends. I haven't really perfected an outro yet, but it's this show. We Have Cool Friends. Stay cool.
Cool friend.